Hey everyone, Teach Johannesson here, host of Alberta Football Uncensored. If you own a business or are looking to get your name out there in any way, AFU Uncensored is always looking for sponsors. We are looking to partner with people in local communities in Alberta to get your name out there, to get your business out there. We have been downloaded over 10,000 times in just over a year, and we are continuously growing every single time we put out an episode. If you are interested in partnering with us and becoming a sponsor, please reach out to us via our Instagram channel. You can send us a direct message, Alberta Football Uncensored on Instagram, and we will get you our sponsorship packages. Enjoy the show.
Perfect.
Welcome to Alberta Football Uncensored. I'm your host, Teach Johannesson. With me, as always, is my co-host, Omari Fraser. Omari, you and I headed out for the final game of the Alberta Football League season, actually the Canadian Major Football League season with the National Championship between the Calgary Gators and the GTA All-Stars. We did some really good coverage and some great post-game interviews. You guys can all check that out on our Instagram page, AFU Uncensored on Instagram, for all those post-game interviews. Really some special moments, I think, for the Calgary Gators and their players. We got to broadcast the game through our live stream, which for the most part went really well. There was a little bit of some sound issues because we were in a booth right beside the music, but I thought it was a really good job for the YouTube stream. I think we're over 2,000 views on that. Just a really cool night. What were your overall thoughts of the game, Omari, as we kind of wrap up that season and move into the high school episode today?
Yeah, I felt it was a good wrap up. Just cumulatively of everything that was on in the AFL. I think production wise for us on that live stream, but that's the first of its kind, which I definitely thought was quite fun to do. Have the game, the scoreboard, and everything. So it was awesome there. I know we heard some feedback on the sound, which it's a lot to work with there. I know we're not like a professional, we're not professional yet, but I thought we did pretty well with the gear we have, because I think we literally did this off a laptop and cell phones.
Yeah.
And professional mics that I guess when I looked back weren't properly connected through the phone to come through, but I thought we did great with what we had.
Yeah.
And then I guess just from the game side of things, I thought entertainment wise, that was a great time for everyone. Like, as a fan, this is now where I feel like small towns just have that edge over the big cities, where fans came in, got to watch some great football. They got to be entertained, toss up halftime, food trucks, everything, all very controlled. Nothing was too crazy. And it was a great event, and I think Airdrie really enjoys events like that, which I know that Irish take advantage of, and the Gators here. So I wouldn't be surprised if we see more games in that Airdrie spot there, just because how you can have such a very intimate time and intimate AFL experience. But game wise, I thought that was a good game. Things definitely started off slow, but a nervous bit back and forth. But as you can tell, this is now where the Gators having the advantage of being able to get over adversity quick, just really started to pour it on. And they I wouldn't say it was like a gap. I know the scoreboard says that, but it was like every few plays you could tell, yeah, the Gators are getting momentum. Okay, now the ball's on the roll, and they have it. This is what kind of a game I felt it was.
Yeah, first of all, Omar, you're sounding clear, but there's a little bit of a weird background noise going on when you're talking. It's kind of like this weird monster growl. So I'm not really sure if you know what that is. But anyways, but we can hear you good. But I thought, and even calling the game, was doing the play-by-play for it. I was getting really frustrated with the GTA defense because they just let Jordan Heather. They didn't really challenge him. Jordan Heather's one of the best quarterbacks to ever play out of Canada. I mean, a Heck Crichton Award winner in university, and comes to the AFL and has had tremendous success. But I was a little disappointed in the lack of adjustments from GTA. They basically just let Jordan throw underneath hooks all game long. Receivers were wide open all game long. And it seemed like GTA was daring them to do that. And they did. And they just controlled the possession of the football. There was no adjustment from GTA to take away those open holes in the zone. And Jordan Heather just kind of had an easy day with it. And it kind of, made the game to be a bit of a blowout in the end. But what a great season for the Alberta Football League. Congratulations to Kurt Howland and the rest of the Calgary Gators finally getting that national championship done. It was a spectacular night, honestly, and being there at that new field in Airdrie and the amount of people that came out to watch and support the game it was really phenomenal. I was just so happy and proud of our league and the people that put that on. And what's really cool about our episode today is we're going to transition into our high school season now, and there's no other perfect person to do that than head coach of the George Mack Mustangs, Chris Glass, who was a huge supporter and help with that Airdrie field and was at the game and really helped the Gators. And so it's just such a great opportunity to have you. He's been on the podcast before. Chris, it's so good to see you, man. Just talk to us a little bit about your thoughts on that game and how proud you were of the city of Airdrie and anything to do with that game and the new field there in Airdrie.
First of all, thank you for having me back on the podcast. It seems like it's been a year since I've been on, so seems like a real long time.
Yeah.
That field, that weekend, that opening. So last week we had the men's national final, but I'm going to go back a week before that where we actually had our official ribbon cutting ceremony. We had the first kickoff from City Council. And then we had 2,500 people in Airdrie show up for 2 Friday night football games.
Wow.
The atmosphere was standing room only. People brought lawn chairs to stand on the track. I have never seen that place more live. And more importantly, it was played at night for the first time in Airdrie history. So it was a pretty exciting event. And then we follow it up with our very first national level event on that field with the senior men's final. And congratulations out to the Gators for putting on a world-class show in Airdrie. And then topping it off by pitching the shutout and taking home the championship. So a very fun 2 weeks indeed.
Have you been able to wipe the smile off your face, Chris?
No, not at all. I've been bouncing around, living on a cloud for the last little bit. This has been a long time in the making. So about 5.5 years ago, we took our first meeting with a member from City Council, my wife and I, and asked what would it take to get this done. And there was a pretty big insurmountable challenge. The biggest thing, nobody knew if the land was good for it, if the city was right for a field turf or anything like that. So we had to commission a feasibility study, and the city of Airdrie wanted us to pay for it. So that's all fine and dandy, but we had to come up with a way to raise about $50,000. So I remember we had a dueling piano night. We had most of the Airdrie football community out, and we raised that money almost in one shot, in one night. Then we had to go to City Council, and we took 300 members of the football community wearing jerseys and football equipment, because some of them actually had practice that day, so they showed up in football equipment. And then we presented our case to City Council, and City Council moved forward, and the feasibility study came back positive, and we were off to the races. And then a thing called COVID happened and shut everything down. So there were so many starts and stops along this journey.
Yeah, it's funny because I live in Sylvan Lake and coach the Sylvan Lake High School here, and I actually ran for council in the last election in 2021. I put my name forward on the last possible day. I spent about $200 on some signs. Didn't do any advertising, anything besides a town hall. And one of my main things at the town hall was getting a turf field in Sylvan Lake, because we just don't have any type of field. I mean, we can't even, our normal game field this year is so bad because of the heat we had in the summer that we can't even play in Sylvan. All our games are being played in Red Deer. Our home games are being played in Red Deer. And I've always been I'm a field of dreams guy, right? If you build it, they will come. And you look at something like a turf field, what that's going to do for Airdrie. And for my own town of Sylvan Lake, I mean, we are the perfect town to host provincial championships and of all different kinds of sports. We're right in the middle. We're a resort town. I believe these things will pay for themselves so quickly. And I think a lot of people don't realize that. And it takes a group of people like yourself to show up to City Council to prove your point and be like, this is going to be something that's amazing. And I just can't wait to see how good it's going to be. I stepped on that turf, and I know it's a world-class turf, and it just felt so good under the feet, and it looked so good. Like, just the area where that field is a beautiful area. And I'm so excited to finally get to play a game on there next year, hopefully, in my league. But it's just great to see. And 2,500 people at a high school game in Airdrie, Alberta is just, I mean, in Alberta in general is just quite nuts. I mean, that is something you see in the States, but I don't think here. And I think that just proves how excited people are and how much people love football. Um, Omar, you got anything for Chris on the national game before we get into the high school stuff?
I just wanted to touch on some of the technology in that field because Chris, I know you mentioned it to us about some of the technology that was input to it. Like I think one thing that as players and coaches, when you go to that field, you'll see a different kind of like underlay or I guess padding or I guess whatever they put underneath the turf there, where it's got the black bits that we always used to, but also the green like pellets. And I think you said they're a hard press or cold press. Do you mind diving into that just to give everyone a bit run on what kind of tech's been put into the field?
Yeah, so it's going to sound like I'm a salesman for field turf now, but it's just because I spent so long researching this that I know pretty much everything about it. So a couple of things you're going to notice about the Airdrie field that's a little bit different. The most visible one is the green pellets mixed in with the black pellets. So we're all used to those turf field black pellets that follow you home, and it becomes a ritual for all good coaches to empty their shoes out and have a little pile of black pellets by the end of the year. But we're mixing in some green ones this year. And the reason why is because this field is one of the only fields in Canada that has something called cool play technology. So during the hottest days of summer in the States, some of these fields could actually burn kids. Like they get over 40 degrees, they get too hot, and there was reports of burn. So Field Turf came up with a new technology that keeps it 30 degrees cooler in the summer months. So that's what the green pellets are. Buried below the field is a shock pad that allows us to hold FIFA level events and Rugby Canada level events. So it's a little bit extra money. Both of those two things cost about $200,000 more than the standard offering, but it allows us to host national and international events, not only for football but for soccer, rugby, field hockey, and stuff like that. So what it does is it makes us the perfect destination. Sorry, Tej, I'll say it's a little bit better than Sylvan Lake in the way that we can host all those international and national level events. So for all of those high schools that are listening, I know you have great reach across the province. I'd like to put it out to if anybody wants to play a neutral zone game in Airdrie, reach out to me. I will make sure the city welcomes you with open arms, and we will have your games played on that field. We will take care of you, and we will show you the hospitality that Airdrie is known for.
That's awesome. And that's a great thing. So yeah, if you want to play a neutral site game, reach out. I would suggest it. And Airdrie is a great city. I obviously love my Sylvan Lake, and I think that people do need to recognize the value in turf fields and what they can bring, being able to host those events. And at this point, it's like, I think it's just worth that extra money to do that stuff because, again, build it and they will come, and then that stuff pays for itself. Okay, so we're so excited to transition to our high school season. We're a couple weeks in. There's been a few games played. We're into week 3 of the rankings. So first, we're going to kind of go over this, Omari, a little bit. I've got the rankings in front of me, the current rankings. Interesting this year, ASAA has reclassified or changed the classification system. We used to be tiered, and it would be tier 4, 3, 2, and 1. We've now gotten rid of the tiers, and we've gone into 3A, 4A, 5A, similar to what all the other sports are, basketball, volleyball, etc. But we don't have a 2A or 1A. So essentially, the old tier 4 and tier 3 schools are fitting into the 3A. And then the old tier 2 schools are kind of in the 4A, and then the tier 1 schools are in the 5A. So we've got 3 12-man rankings, 5A, 4A, 3A, and then we've also got 9-a-side and 6-a-side. And we'll probably touch on some 9-a-side, 6-a-side this year as well, because that's kind of interesting. But starting in 5A, week 3 current, Harry Ainley sitting number 1, 4-0 on record. They beat Spruce Grove 50-10 last week. So it looks like Harry Ainley is geared up and ready to go this season. They beat Raymond earlier in the year, who we're going to talk about today as well. Raymond ranked number 2, St. Francis 3. You've seen anything out of those Calgary schools this year, Omari? St. Francis, Ernest Manning, Notre Dame. They're St. Francis is 3, Notre Dame is 6, and Ernest Manning, the defending provincial champions at the highest tier, are 1 and 2 this year. A little bit of a slower start, ranked 5th. Have you seen anything from those guys?
Uh, I've seen, I've heard about um, Francis. I know Francis recently beat, I believe it was Ernest Manning. Then yeah, Francis beat Ernest Manning. I was able to go. I'm actually going to be going to the ND versus Manning game on Friday. A running back that I used to coaches in is going to be playing there, so I'm looking forward to checking that out and seeing how it ranks out. Because I know ND, I know another top school, very well coached with Coach Deluzio there. But they've had a slower start going against Raymond and Raymond there. So looking forward to seeing how everything shapes up there. Definitely excited to get more into these high school games. One thing I've been able to watch, so I actually watched the ND and Raymond game with that one. I guess just to tie into with Raymond coming up to play uh, Coach Glass, Coach Glass and his team. Um, they always look to be a very strong team that executes at a high level. And I think we're excited to dive into that on each of them we've all seen. So overall, just stuff I've heard, but I haven't watched much yet, which I'm definitely excited to dive into.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and then, who I actually want to talk about in the rankings, which is a pretty cool thing for us. So Notre Dame out of Red Deer. So there's Notre Dame, Calgary is ranked 6th. Notre Dame out of Red Deer ranked 8th. And to my knowledge, in the 5A level, the highest level, to my knowledge, and I've been around Central Alberta most of my life, coaching and playing, to my knowledge, no Red Deer team has ever been ranked that high in the top tier or top classification in the province. So, and we actually played them in our first game of the year, and that team is legit. That team, Notre Dame from Red Deer, you're going to hear they're going to make some noise this year. And they've got some players, a kid named Ben McCauley, who is a all-world high school player, kid named Caden Cormier, who's basically a twin to Ben McCauley, but a little bit younger, decent quarterback there as well, makes smart decisions. Really good running back, number 22. I forget his name in the moment, but that team, Notre Dame out of Red Deer, is a high-quality football team with a ton of athletes and good coaches, and they run a good system, and they have electronic wrist guards, which is crazy. Their coach can just like tap a button on an iPad, and then the play shoots to the wrist guards, and they've got all their receivers and quarterback wear them. And you know what? I think it might be slightly illegal because in the NFL, they shut the communication system off. But with these electronic wrist guards, like they can run up to the line and the coach can not like what he sees and just click another button and it changes the play, which we might have to put something in place for our league with that kind of communications, because man, that is a disadvantage for me as a D coordinator when they can just show up and press a button. So, but they're using it. It costs a lot of money, but it's a smart decision on their coaches to get the plays and make sure everyone does it correctly. So that is going to be a team that I'm really interested to see how they kind of finish out the year. And I think hopefully we'll get them again in the playoffs at some point and hopefully get a little bit of revenge. Moving down to the 4A level, Holy Trinity Academy is just beating the doors off of people right now at Okotoks. I mean, I think they went to San Diego and beat a team down there 40-0, and they're 3-0 right now. Just beat Catholic Central 45-13. So no surprise out of there. The Knights were our first guest last year on the podcast, and they are off to a great start. St. Joseph out of Grand Prairie, no surprise, they're number 2, Medicine Hat, and then 4th, a team that out of Red Deer again, Hunting Hills. So Central Alberta representing really well in the rankings in 5A and 4A. We just played Hunting Hills. We lost 18-13 in a really close game on last week, and I was really proud of my group. But that's another good team and another well-coached team. Kyle Cedric down there, guest on the podcast before, a provincial level coach. And so Hunting Hills ranked number 4 and looking solid. They definitely got some stud athletes. And then right below Hunting Hills, ranked number 5, Chris Glass's own George McDougall, 3-1, lost to Holy Rosary first game of the season. Holy Rosary ranked number 1 in 3A, always a powerhouse down there. So we're going to start right there, Coach. How are you feeling about your group so far in the 4 games that you've played? What have you really liked about them, and what are you really focusing on improving moving into the next week?
Well, to start out, real shout out to Holy Rosary. That's a good football team out in Lloydminster. They're going to be hard pressed not to win Tier 3 again.
I hope fantastic. They move up. Get out of here, Holy Rosary. Go to the 4A. Get out of 3A. You've won enough. Move up.
Oh, we welcome it. We welcome a rematch. They were a little bit more prepared in that game than we were. We made a few mistakes towards the end of it to let it get away with us. But in league play, we're 3-0, and we're starting to hit our own. Our defense is the strength of our team in so many ways. We have a kid named Seth Horwood, who, if you're university looking, is in my 26 years the best player I've ever coached.
Wow.
He plays linebacker,
Oh, yeah.
and fullback for us. He's worth the price of admission. Teams just don't go to his side anymore. So we've actually had to move him around in order to make sure he can make tackles. We have one heck of a challenge coming up this week, though. Our quarterback Cohen Bonnet is another kid that people need to see. Big 6'4", 6'5" quarterback. He played for the U18 Football Alberta squad and is worth the price of admission. But we're going down to Raymond on Friday to play the Comets in Raymond. So that's going to be a real exciting thing for our team. I believe it's the first time in history our schools have played each other. So it's pretty exciting.
Yeah. And just overall, like, you just talk about, because I know you probably feel the same with me, and how good does it feel to just be back at this time of year and coaching high school football again?
Oh, it's like everything is right in the world, right? Like,
yeah, that's right.
For some people who are born to coach, this is the best time of year. The weeds start to die, it gets colder, and everybody else gets grumpy, but we love it because we know it's football season. So when fall comes around, it's a special time.
I always say that too. My wife doesn't like fall as much. She's a teacher, so that means she has to go back to school. But for me, it's just, this might be my favorite time of year. I love coaching football. I love everything about how Alberta football is going. And it is just such a wonderful time of year. And it's just so sad that it's so short and it just seems to go by so quickly. But moving into the Raymond thing. So this is really interesting. Obviously, first of all, how did this game come about? Did you set it up with them, or like how did it come about? And why do you think it's important for your team to play a team the caliber of the Raymond Commons?
Yeah. So how it came about, I'll answer that one first. Connor, Ralph, and I have been talking for about 2 years to trying to get a game to work. Part of the problem with Rocky View schools, it's not a problem, but we have a very strong league. So we have 6 regular season games. So there's not a lot of exhibition room. So trying to book an exhibition game against the team that you're trying to line up with is a little bit more difficult than you'd think. So this game is actually 2 years in the making. We wanted it last year. It didn't work out based on our schedules, so we had to play another team that was open. But we made a promise to each other that we'd play this year, and we're going to fulfill that by going down to Raymond. Why it's important? You touched on it with the field, and you touched on a little bit about how it's an exciting time to be in Airdrie. Having that many people out for the game, seeing what our Pee Wee team is doing under the leadership of Nolan and Tyrell Roll. I mean, they're winning provincial championships down there. Our spring team just won the Calgary Spring League championship. The Bantam team looks stronger than ever. There's so much great things going on in Airdrie, and I want to go down to Raymond and see how they've kept that culture alive, right? Back to the days of Lloyd Fairbanks coaching that team. That's, I believe, as far back as I remember it starting. But Raymond has a small town feel, I think a population of 400, and they keep cranking out great football teams, and they have a great football culture. So it's important for us to go down there to challenge ourselves, but I want to learn about the culture side and what the city of Raymond is doing so right to keep supporting this team year in and year out, because we've all stole from somebody in this game, and I plan on stealing that from them and figuring out how we can bring some of that culture back to Airdrie and keep growing what we're growing now.
Yeah, I think that's such an important point. I think the best coaches, in my opinion, are those that put ego aside and are willing to steal from other people. And it doesn't have to be verbatim. Like I like to steal stuff from people and then put my own twist to it, right? But you also have to respect teams like Raymond that with such a little population that they're competing in the highest tier every year. So what is it that they're doing? It's not a fluke, right? And I think that's such an important thing. And I like that you guys are going on the road there. Obviously your new facility is really nice, but I know for me, if I was a player on your team and I was playing Raymond, I want to go there. I want to
Yeah.
see, I want to go play with their fans in their stadium in that culture. And I think the road trip itself, like what an awesome opportunity for you guys to bond. I think that is just going to be so good for you guys. And like, let's be real. That is going to be in all most likely the best team, or at least one of the best, probably the best team you're going to face all year. So with that in mind, like regardless of the result of this game, win or lose, when that game is all wrapped up and it's said and done, what are you really hoping to have seen from your team?
Well, you can't expect to run with the wolves at night if you spend all day sparring with the puppies, right? So we want
Yeah.
to be standing at the end of this year. I mean, Holy Trinity, you mentioned them; they could easily be a top team in 5A. Matt, if you're listening, consider moving up. Um, but I mean, our road to provincials is going to have to go through a very strong team in Okotoks as a qualifier if we went out in our league. So we need to find ways to become fire tested, and there's no better fire test than the legendary Raymond Comets. I mean, they've been doing it for so long and so well, and that is what's going to make us stronger, is taking on those games. I think every really good developing program who's starting to come into their own decides to, instead of taking those gimme games, they start trying to look for those stretch games and those challenge games. Holy Rosary was a conscious decision because they are a very tough team for your very first game. You're going to find out a lot about yourself playing that game, what you need to work on, what you do well, what you don't do well. And that's what you walk away from a Raymond game with as well. Win or lose, you're going to learn a lot about who you are and what you need to improve on.
Yeah, absolutely. Omari.
I like what you said with the puppies and the wolves. I mean, you need to get that on a shirt. Put that on the hoodies, on the tubes, the player jackets.
Yeah.
Put that on everything. Um, one
Yeah.
one point I wanted to, I guess, is a few minutes back, but the electric. You just mentioned the team has like electronic play coaches. Like that sounds sick, but also I can see the refs having an issue with that because, like, isn't that something that's like illegal or like deemed illegal?
As far as I understand from the AS2A rules, for provincial play, that would have to be offered to both teams. So it's nothing different from teams using huddle sideline or replay technology. So any kind of electronic stuff would have to be approved prior to provincial play. But each league will have their own rules around that as well.
Okay, okay. Because I saw a thing in the NFL where I guess players are wearing their Apple Watch. I'm in college, they're wearing their Apple Watches, and someone was like, "Oh, someone should get like a play caller app, and then you could just send the play out to every single position. Like, oh, you have a post, you have a corner, you have a this for that, and help speed things up there." Which might be an idea, maybe not. We'll see if teams or schools have budgets to outfit every player with an Apple Watch. Um, but yeah, one question I got, I think I like what you said with having like reaching out for those scrimmage games because those are really now going to be the ones that test you. And I think we've all heard stories or like heard stories about Raymond where I know for the longest time I'd always hear about Raymond's bantam and amateur teams and they're dominant for a while and high school and everything. So there's definitely a culture in there where it's all the kids are athletes, all the kids are together and everything. I feel like that's a powerful thing with this with strong smaller communities. And I think there's a trend that I've noticed just with these rankings where a lot more of the smaller communities, maybe smaller cities, towns, communities are getting ranked higher than, you know, I don't know, I have to look at the numbers, but I'm just going to claim now majority of city teams. Do you think what do you have to say to that? Just looking like all these smaller towns and what they're putting back into their kids, into their programs, into their um, programs and everything.
Well, I do see the investment that Okotoks has made as a city in their peewee, their bantam, their flag football leagues, and developing the game from that angle. It's also what's going on here in Airdrie as well. Like Nolan and Tyrell role working with the peewee team. I mean, we have two peewee teams this year. We split it up into two teams. There's an extreme flag football league. There's another flag football league put on by the Airdrie Football Society. There's a lot of kids playing a lot of football and having fun at a young age. and that pays dividends later on. And you're starting to see that investment really pay out. Holy Trinity's strong. Foothills is a strong team. In Airdrie right now, Bert Church just knocked off Cochrane for the first time in 20 years. I know Croxford is 0-2, but we played them. They're a very good football team, and that record will correct itself shortly. There's a lot of really good rural teams, and part of it is because when you invest at that young age, those kids carry on up, right? There's not a lot of places they can go, so they stay in your area, they stay in your territory, and you get the benefit of the investment early on.
I like that. I like that. And heading into now, this upcoming game, I think you guys are busting down and everything. Yeah.
Yes, we are. Yeah, we're. It's gonna be a long day, but we're gonna make it work.
Who's in charge of the movies?
Well, I have a DVD of Boys of Fall that we can throw on, so I'll take care of that. But I think on the way back, win or lose, people are gonna be sleeping. That's a long bus ride.
Yeah, you have to sleep after those games. Yeah, they're just gonna be physically exhausted as well.
And if you look at the way Raymond plays too, it's not like they hand the ball off every 3 minutes and step on the ball and keep the clock rolling. They're a fast-paced team. They like to throw the ball a lot. 5 receiver sets. They're a very fun, dynamic brand of football. You're going to be running a lot, is all I'm saying. So if you're not tired on the bus, you probably didn't do your job.
Yeah, that's actually, maybe that's another T-shirt. If you're not tired on the bus, you didn't do your job. We're trying to get into the merchandise world with the podcast here, so we got to, Mari, make sure you remember these slogans because we might have to do that. The Chris Glass quote book. Yeah. Chris, how are your guys feeling? Like, what's the mood around your team? How excited are they to embark on this enormous challenge that's ahead of them going to Raymond?
Yeah, it's exciting, but we practice every Tuesday. We rent out the turf, and so we were on the turf field yesterday, and it just seemed like a regular week, which is nice. One of the things we've tried to do for the past 4 years, and I think it's really helped with our success, is to not focus necessarily on who you're playing. Focus on the scheme. Focus on what you're doing that week, right? Like if you're going up against a 4-3 or a cover 1, cover 3, that kind of team. But don't focus on the team. Don't get caught up in the this team has won 20 championships or this team is 0-6, right? If we go in and we execute what our game plan is, we're going to be successful. So the guys are excited to play a game on Friday, but it's a work week, and it's just a normal work week, which I think will pay dividends, right? There's always this aura when you play teams that have such legendary programs, and if you get caught up in it, it can really hurt you, right? So we're focusing on what we need to do to win the game as opposed to who we're playing.
Yeah, and I think that's a great attitude to have moving into it. Because sometimes if you focus too much on who you're playing, it can kind of get away from you, right? And I think that's a great piece of advice. It's kind of the KISS method, right? Keep it simple, stupid. It's just let's not get too married to who we're playing. We know our stuff, and let's be more focused on us than on them. And I think that's a really cool message to send. Like, focus on us, not on them. There's another T-shirt, I guess. But I think that's a really good thing. Talk to me a little bit about you did mention your quarterback and your linebacker there, but talk to me first a couple key losses that you had from last year that you've tried to fill holes with, and then maybe an unsung kind of player or two that maybe people don't know, but you kind of know through seeing in practice that you're expecting to see some big things from this year.
Yeah. Okay. So a couple of big losses. Jordan Southern signed with the University of Calgary, and having him gone on the defense is huge. Offensively, we had a kid transfer out. He moved back to Cochrane, a guy named James Drake, who James has great hands, and he's 6'6", and he's somebody that a lot of universities should be looking at. But unfortunately, he's no longer a Mustang. So it's too bad because he had a lot of great chemistry with Cohen. But for universities looking for a great slot receiver, he's another guy out of Bow Valley. But those are our key losses from last year for sure.
Yeah, and then any guys that, like I said, like kind of unsung that you're really maybe people haven't heard of, but you're looking forward to seeing them throughout the year?
Yeah, we have a couple of kids that really do fly under the radar. our running back, Hamish Campanelli, he's a shorter statured guy and he often gets overlooked because of his size. But for the last 2 years, he's been a dominant force at running back for us and very much overlooked. I don't think anybody game plans against him, but to their own peril. If you don't take him seriously, he's going to run 200 yards on you. And he does that behind one of the best linemen that I've had that hadn't played prior to high school in some time, a kid named Waba. He plays right tackle for us, and he's a big kid, 260, 6'6", 6'5",
Damn.
and just a beast and a really nice kid too. So these are two kids that don't get a lot of attention, but they should, because they're fun to watch and they're very humble kids. So their face is probably turning red once they read this or hear about this, because they're not the spotlight kind of kids, but they deserve the highlight.
Yeah, no, and that's fair. And that's what I like to do with this. And our big goal with this podcast is obviously spread the word of Alberta football, but spread the names of the kids that are doing it as well. And so I also do want to, each episode we do with our coaches is a little bit of a learning, a little bit of a teaching to help other coaches throughout the province. Because it's one thing, obviously, I don't want you to give away anything crazy, but if you could, what would a normal practice plan for you like? I know a lot of coaches, especially when you're getting into coaching, organizing practices can be one of the most difficult things to figure out. So what does a typical practice look like for you? How are you setting your practice plan? Is it the same every day? Are you adjusting based on different things? What goes on in your mind when you're coming up with how you want to practice each day or each week?
Yeah, I'm a really routine guy. So I like to have Monday to Friday look the same week to week. So you're going to see our practice plans relatively the same. But after our game on Friday, the coaches talk about what they want to see. If there's any adjustments that need to be made, we make it. But first thing we do is we start with a dynamic warm-up, nothing special there. But something that I think really good teams do, and if you want to become a better tackling and better blocking team, do it. This is Bubba Scott, my defensive coordinator's idea. So again, I'm stealing from him. You can learn from your own staff too. Bubba really brought this in this year, something called Champion Circuit. So for 15 minutes, we have 3 different drills that people run through that we rotate through. One's a tackling based drill, one's a blocking based drill, and one's a special teams based drill. So every single person on the team learns how to tackle. Every single person on the team learns how to block. Every single person on the team learns 15 minutes of special teams as well. Mm-hmm. That way, when you're scrambling to throw a guy in, they have at least those skills, mm-hmm. right? And there's not a position on the team where you don't need to tackle or you don't need to block, right? So that's the championship circuit. The other thing I would really encourage coaches to do is limit their practices to 2 hours. There are so much information out there that after 2 hours, kids have a hard time retaining it. Mm-hmm. And it gets tempting to try to fit more and more and more and more into your day because you feel like you got to bite off a lot in a week, right? But be hard with what you cut out, but make sure you're cutting it off at the 2 hour mark, because anything more than that, it's the end of the day for a lot of kids. It's hard for them to retain that knowledge at the end, and it's even hard at the pro level, right? That's why practices tend to stick around the 2 hour mark. So that's what I would recommend, and that's what we do at the Mustangs pretty religiously.
Yeah, you said something there that piqued my interest a little bit, and I think is often overlooked. And again, I say this a lot because it's something that I've had to work on in my own life, and I try to practice it daily because it is a struggle for me, and that is putting ego aside. It's been a weakness for me throughout my life. I've gotten much better of it as I've grown older and coached more. But you said coaches can learn from their other coaches as well, and I think that's an often understood thing, especially with head coaches. Head coaches can be a little bit stubborn. They've always done things a certain way, and then a new guy comes in and he's got an idea. It's really easy to just kind of ignore that guy. But how important is it for you as a head coach to open that floor up to your other coaches, to let them know they feel valued, to let them feel a part of it, to let them know that you trust them?
Well, this is another T-shirt comment, but it comes from the great Bulldogs coach down south, John DeWitt. John used to say all the time that you can coach 20 years or you can coach 1 year 20 times, right?
Mm.
So when you have assistants that you bring in and that you trust, and uh, in my mind, Bubba Scott and Devin Baker, my offense and defensive assistants, our coordinators, sorry, are just tremendous guys, but they have a different view of a lot of things than I do. But
Hmm.
I trusted them and I brought them in for a reason and I put them in their roles. So unless I want to be offense, defensive coordinator, and head coach at the same time, I've got to cede a little bit of that control and cede a little bit of that ego. As a result, I've learned so much from both of them, right? That like Devin's taught me a whole different style of offense than what I would really like. And Bubba's approach to defense is completely different than we've had at George Mack in the last couple of years, and it's going to be very successful. So, you know, if you think you know it all, look to university, look to the NFL. Those guys will give credit to other people too. So make sure that you keep learning because you have a lot of diamonds in the rough around you, right? And a lot of people have different approaches that might work better than the one that you've been doing for the last 10 years.
Yeah, and I think, for me is I think what's most important about a staff is that every person on the staff, whether they're the head coach, the O coordinator, the D coordinator, the DB coach, the receivers coach, the film guy, I think it's so important to do whatever you can to make those people feel incredibly valued, to make those people feel that the job they're doing is so important. And I try to stress, I think we're good at this as coaches, right? All of us coaches know, like, we try to, those guys that just play special teams, we're like, special teams are so important. This is so valuable to me. For me in my defensive system, I've gone, I don't want to give this is going to be on film anyway. So I don't blitz a whole lot anymore. I used to blitz a lot. And I've realized over the time that if I can get away with a 3-man rush, it allows me to essentially have an unblocked man every single play and that I can just allow them to read and react and flow to the play. But I have to have those 3-man rush just destroy the offensive line. I need them to run it. And even though it can get a little bit boring, it's like, look, your job is simple. Plug the 4 gaps in the middle and allow my other guys to make their plays. But I harp on that so much, and I tell them this is the most important part of this defense, because if you can't do that, now I can't just rush 3. Now I don't get that free guy. Now I can't be as creative defensively. And it makes them feel valued, and we're good at that with players. But I don't think we're as good at that overall in the coaching community of making all of our coaches feel that the job that they're doing is incredibly important. So I think that that's something that all coaches can be better at, and just making the people that are with you feel valued. I think that's really important. Omar, you got anything else for Chris? We've both got to get going to practices in about 15 minutes, but you got anything else
No,
for
I just
Chris?
wanted to touch on what Chris said last year on this segment. We always ask high school coaches about just taking just like I think last year, what was it you said? I've been doing it all Wolfpack season, but it was like anytime you have to punt and you're down guys, don't take a timeout, just take delay a game, and it's like a 5-yard penalty. The amount of times I was coaching, I heard that, and okay, I'm still in that. The amount of times I used that just all through Wolfpack is where like, hey, we didn't have a really good team this year. Our special teams was a mess. Anyways, but we'd always have like 10 guys, 11 guys, whatever. I was like, all right, look, we're not taking the timeout, say the timeout, but we need to be able to at least say, all right, delay a game, 5 years, we'll make it back in the punt. And luckily, we could go down and cover it. So I want to thank you for that, because I definitely stole that and saved us from using unnecessary timeouts when guys weren't paying attention.
Well, I like to hoard my timeouts. If I could finish the game with all 4, 2 in the first half, I'm a happy man. That means I managed it well. But having that timeout at the end of the game allows you to stop the clock on second before somebody has to kick the ball. After a second down or something like that, you can really start grinding out the clock. I'm really big on time management, and not taking those timeouts is huge for me. And again, something I stole from much smarter people.
Well, it's funny because we literally, that's so funny, Omari, because literally in our last game, we had that exact situation come up, and we had 11 guys on punt, and my guys were like saying call timeout, and I was like, no. A wise man told me, take the 5-yard penalty. Do not waste this timeout. It literally happened last week. Now, unfortunately for me, Chris, guys were already yelling timeout, so the ref called the timeout. but I was trying so hard. I'm like running down the sideline. No, don't call it, because I remembered that. So I think that's what's so cool about this podcast and why I really want to get coaches on here to give little tips and advice, because that stuck with me too, Omari. So that's so funny. Chris, I'm going to give you the last word here. You can say anything you want, any kind of shout outs you want to make before we close the podcast.
Yeah, two real shout outs. One to Connor Ralph for welcoming us so well into Raymond. He's been great about giving us the contacts that we need to get food and arranging the game down there. So really looking forward to that game. The other big shout out I want to give is to Airdrie City Council. It's not easy to divert $5 million worth of taxpayers' money and get this to the front burner, but the field we're playing on is a testament to our city council and our commitment to amateur sports in Airdrie. So big shout outs to them and to you guys for doing this pod. It's great to be back on.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll definitely have you on again. I love talking to you, Chris, and I love talking football. And before Omari closes out, I just want to say thank you to everyone who's listened. We've been going for about a year and a half now on this podcast. We've grown it from, covering our own league, the Alberta Football League, to now doing high school. We hit 10,000 downloads a couple months ago, which is just insane to think about, that people are willing to come on and download our episode and listen on your car drives and your bus rides. And we've just received so much great feedback. So we're going to continue doing this. We're going to bring you episodes, maybe even multiple episodes each week as best we can. Getting a hold of coaches can sometimes be a little bit difficult, trying to find times to record. So just thank you to everyone that's listened. And if you have any ideas or you want to come on the podcast, reach out to our Instagram, send us a direct message. We are always willing to have people on and talk about whatever that we want to talk about. We just love talking football. So follow us on Instagram. We post a lot of good stuff there. Reach out to us if you've got ideas or stuff that you'd like us to cover on the podcast, or if you'd want to be on the podcast. So Chris, thank you so much for coming. Good luck this week against Raymond. I can't wait to see how that game goes for you guys. Have a great trip down there. And Omari, go ahead and close us out.
Hey, appreciate everyone tuning in. You can always catch all of our episodes on Apple Music, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, wherever you catch your podcasts. Everything's always up there. Be sure to check out all of our videos that went up just with all the national coverage, the Gators and everything, and see how that wraps up. And we're definitely excited to dive into this high school season here. Lots of exciting football, lots of exciting talent, and just wanting to get more exposure on this, because I know it's always something that's talked about. Just growing up, I wish there's more coverage or just more word. Hey, it's here, it's now. We've done this now for a year, so we're well versed in being able to do this and add coverage and get the word out on games and everything for you guys. So for those listening in, especially if you're a student athlete, we're looking forward to hearing with you. One thing we are excited to do our little pop quiz that we look forward to do. We'll test that for you, and as well, how can you guys market yourself? Because this is something too now where, yes, you take care of on the field stuff, but if you do have aspirations to be playing after high school and everything, there has to be a sense of marketability with yourself. And I feel it's a great way to show how well you can speak, your habits, your morals, all the good things that you feel like a university program would love to take you on and continue on your career. So with that being said, take care of your homework, get your vitamins in, drink your water, listen to your coaches, run the plays, have fun. We look forward to hearing all about these scores and going on week to week.
Perfect. Thank you, Chris. Thank you, Omari. We'll be back soon, maybe even later this week. We're trying to arrange a couple other things, but if not, definitely next week. And again, check us out on Instagram. Send us a message. We want to hear from you guys. Thank you so much, Chris. Enjoy practice. We'll see you soon.
Thanks, guys. That was great. I appreciate it.
Awesome.
Okay.